This week on the Navigating Personal Growth podcast, the power of letting go, decluttering our life, our mind, our home, and most importantly, and I think maybe one of the most difficult, our relationships, right? Hey Navigators, my name is Brooke Plack and I'm your host here today on the Navigating Personal Growth podcast, and I'm so excited you've come to join me in our New Year's episode. It's New Year's. Okay, so if you're watching this live, it's not actually New Year's yet, but it's the week of New Year's, so we are almost there. We're just a few days away, and if you're not watching this live, then welcome. Glad you're here. Today we are talking about the power of letting go, decluttering our life, our mind, our home, and most importantly, and I think maybe one of the most difficult, our relationships, right? So as we make, oh, it's New Year's resolutions, here we go, all the fluff that goes along with that. I think that sometimes we get locked in the idea of what we want to do instead of doing the work to actually go back and figure out why and what it is we actually need to work on. And so that's what we're going to dive in today and talking about how do we create this space for growth, healing, and the new experiences that we truly desire. And, New Year's always seems like that time of purging, releasing, and starting anew. And I am not one to actually support New Year's resolutions. I'm more of it's a goal getter kind of girl where, I think it's a perfect time to sit and review your goals, review your life plan if you have one, and realign where it is that you want to go. And so I choose a word of the year, and then I go back and look at my life plan. That's kind of my strategy at the new year and my strategy at every quarter, right? But if there's one thing I've learned in my 30s is that if you don't know where you want to go, if you don't know what it is that you want to do, the universe, the rest of the world, God, they don't know either. And so you've got to get really, really clear on that. But in order to do that, it requires some letting go. And so we have to get rid of what I call cobwebs, the old blood, the dark parts of our life that we don't really want to focus on. Maybe it's that messy junk drawer that every time you walk by, it's causing you anxiety and you're like, oh, I really need to do that. Or maybe it's the friend that isn't speaking life into you anymore, the person that isn't actually bringing you up. Maybe it's a tough relationship that you realized this has served its time and I need to let it go. Or maybe it's some sort of belief that you're holding on to. I'm not good enough. I'm scared. What if? Maybe that's what's holding you back. And those are the things that we need to let go of as we step into the next season, or in our case, the new year of our life, right? And so this stuff can be mental, can be physically like touching stuff, right? Like too many pens, too many clothes, too much stuff in my garage. Okay. Can I get an amen? Or it could be mental or emotional, or it could be relationships. So all of those things are the things that we have to focus on letting go and realizing there's so much power in letting go as we want to move forward with our lives into the new year or a new season or a new quarter or wherever you may find yourself listening to this episode. And so there is a process that, comes with these attachments, right? I can sit here on this podcast and talk about it, but to actually do the work is not easy. It's hard. And I think we'd be amiss if we didn't pay attention to that and, bring light to this isn't always going to be something that's easy for you. Some people have a really hard time letting go of physical things, whereas other people have a really hard time letting go of relationships. And then others struggle with letting go of mental, the things in your mind, and emotional ties. And that's also hard. And so all of those things are hard. But I think the hardest part is identifying what is it that's keeping me from letting go. So let's start with relationships, okay? Who in your life is holding you back? Who is not for you? My friend told me the other day, she was at a lunch and she's newly single and she had found someone, not found someone, but met someone and someone said to her, well, he'd never date you. That person is not for you if somebody's going to say that to you. That is not a friend. That is an acquaintance you probably don't want to be around anymore, right? So, who are these relationships that are holding you down? Who is causing tension and drama in your life? Can it be resolved? And if not, maybe it's time to let that relationship go. Because, guys, I'm just going to lay it out here and tell you cortisol is not your friend when it comes to your health journey, weight loss, and healing. And if you have people in your life that are constantly raising those cortisol levels for you, whether it's drama or conversations or snippy comments, that's not what we have to carry into adulthood with us. We have a choice now, and we don't have to have those people in our lives. Whether that's somebody you're related to, you can love someone from a distance. You can respectfully see them at Christmas and not maintain a relationship with them any longer. That's okay for you to have those boundaries. But there is so much power in letting go of those friendships and those relationships that are draining you. Is it easy? No, I won't pretend like it is. Is it worth it? You bet it is. It's totally worth it. All right, let's talk about the mental and emotional. I have a really cool story to share with you about this part too here in just a minute. But I want to talk about you before I share the story. Mentally and emotionally, what are the thoughts that you're holding on to that's no longer serving you? Okay. I'm not what enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not wealthy enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not trained enough. Those are lies. Those are all lies. And you can let them go. And you may start by just simply adding the word yet at the end of that sentence. So if it's so hard for you to let go of, I'm not pretty enough or I'm not smart enough, what if you said to yourself, I'm not smart enough yet? Yet implies that there's still room to grow. And there is. As long as you're on earth, as long as you're on this side of eternity, there's always room to grow. What other thoughts are holding you back? I'm anxious. I'm depressed. Okay. Yes, that may be true. Now what? You're an adult. We are all in charge of our own lives and our own happiness. I am anxious, but what if you added that word after that sentence? I am anxious, but I am learning ways to deal with my anxiety. I am depressed, but I choose to still get up every day and do the best I can. Okay. We're adding verbiage and words to the way that we talk to ourselves, and our self-talk can be huge in letting go of those things that are holding us back. Okay. So we've talked about relationships. We talked about mental and emotional. What about physical stuff? Okay. I found myself constantly needing to, or I'm giggling because it's funny now, but it wasn't funny at the time. Constantly needing to organize my garage. And as soon as I would get it organized, it was a mess again. And I don't know why it took a moment to dawn on me. You have too much stuff in your garage, Brooke. It's not that my organizational skills were bad. It's that there's genuinely too much stuff that I was trying to shove in there and always keep organized and put away. And so that is a journey that I'm on. It's not something that I'm finished with, but it's a whole lot better than it was. And I've still got shelves I need to go through. And you know what? I really don't need that pegboard over there. All those tools can go down to my husband's shop. And so I'm still in the process of that. But sometimes we just have too much stuff. And if you're finding yourself having to spend all of your weekends and all of your time maintaining and taking care of stuff, maybe it's time to let go of that. For example, my husband and I have a 4-wheeler and a lawnmower that we can't keep running. We both bought them used, and every time we go to start them, the dang things don't work. So guess what? We're getting rid of them because that was an emotional drain on me because I cannot stand to have things that don't work. I don't want toys without batteries. I don't want a remote not working. I will drive that day right then and get the batteries. I have a battery operated leaf blower because I don't want to have to deal with all the mix of the oil and the gas and all the things you put in the leaf blower. I want my stuff to work. But I had to realize we weren't even using the mower. We have a lawn guy. Why do we need a 0-turn mower? Someone mows our yard every week, and we're spending more money in parts and repairs trying to fix the mower that we don't use. So it's time to let go of the mower and the four-wheeler, right? And so realizing that sometimes we genuinely just have too much stuff that we're no longer using. And one of the coolest things I learned in my decluttering journey, right? I don't know if you guys remember Marie Kondo. She had a Netflix episode. She's an Asian woman that's brilliant when it comes to decluttering. And she has all of these strategies. So if you're sitting in the stuff that you're needing to get rid of, highly recommend looking up Marie Kondo's strategies. But one of the things she teaches is for you to take each physical item in your hands. Like, let's say you're going through your closet, and she says, you look at it and you go, thank you. You have served me well. Now it is time for you to go. So just because you love that threadbare shirt that you never wear anymore one time when you were in your 20s, thank you. You served me well. Now it's time for you to go. And you can donate it on for the next person, right? So sometimes we have to acknowledge things have gone well, but now it's time to let it go. Okay. And here's a quote that I think is just great for helping us remember this. Before I go into this great story, I want to tell you that has to do with the mental and emotional load that we carry. The quote is from Eckhart Tolle, and he's a famous German teacher. And he says, sometimes letting go is an act of far greater power than defending or hanging on. Pretty powerful, huh? So there's more power sometimes in letting go of the things than there is in holding on to them, because they could bring someone else joy if they're no longer bringing you joy. So I'm so excited to tell you about the story that I talked about a minute ago that had to do with our mental and emotional load, right? So this is about Nelson Mandela, one of the famous leaders, most famous leaders of all time. And he was fighting against oppression and so many things politically going wrong in South Africa. And he endured immense suffering during his 27 years of imprisonment. For nearly 3 decades, he was confined to a tiny cell, subjected to hard labor and cut off from the outside world. 27 years, y'all. Yet during this time, he faced an internal struggle that proved even more difficult, letting go of the anger and resentment towards those who had taken away his freedom. He was released from prison in 1990. But instead of taking revenge or harboring bitterness, he chose the path of reconciliation because he understood that clinging to hatred would only continue to imprison him emotionally. And listen to this quote that he said after being imprisoned for 27 years. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. How many things are we carrying mentally and emotionally from our past relationships, and our past hurts that are imprisoning us? Because he chose to let go of that anger, that became the foundation of his leadership. Mandela went on to become South Africa's first Black president in 1994, where he prioritized uniting the divided nation. He invited his former jailers to his inauguration. Man, that gives me chills. And worked with political opponents to build a new South Africa. One of the most symbolic moments came in 1995 at the Rugby World Cup when he donned a jersey of the national team, a team that historically seen as a symbol of all those things he fought against. This act of grace and forgiveness inspired the country and demonstrated his commitment to healing the nation. Mandela's ability. Fill your name into this. Brooke's ability. John's ability. What is your name? Your ability to let go of a personal burden of resentment allowed him to lead with wisdom and compassion. It brought him personal freedom and paved the way for national reconciliation. And his story is a powerful reminder that forgiveness and letting go can transform not only individuals, but entire societies. What would your life look like if you were able to forgive and let go of those who had hurt and wronged you? Because if we're being honest, when we harbor hate and resentment and hard things, who's carrying that burden? We are, not the people that we're mad at. Not the people that's hurt us. They're not even thinking about us anymore. They rolled on. We're the ones left carrying that burden. We are the ones still hurt. And so here's my question for you today. What is something you're holding on to that you feel ready to release? Is it emotional? Is it mental? Is it something physical? Or maybe it's a relationship. And we're going to talk about 3 ways to get you started right after we have my favorite segment in the podcast, Trivia in the Trenches. Here we go. Who was the last NASCAR driver to serve jail time for running moonshine? Buddy Arrington. I've never even heard of that NASCAR driver. But you know what? I feel like that if you were a NASCAR driver and you were running moonshine, you might be able to outrun the police. And that was kind of funny. So that is why I chose that for our Trivia in the Trenches. Completely unrelated. Okay. How do you get started? What are some quick and easy ways for you to get started in letting go and embracing this power in your life? Number 1, start small with decluttering. Begin with one space or category like clothes or a desk. Okay. Marie Kondo suggests get every like item into one pile. So if you're doing pens, get all your pens into one pile. Pens, P-E-N, pens, like the ones we write with. We tend to have tons of them. That was one of my son's spelling words this week. Put all your pens in a pile, and then you realize how much you have of those. Okay. Or if you're going through your shoes and you have shoes by your back door, on your back porch, in your garage, and in your closet, get them all in one pile and then go through your shoes. Okay, so that's number 1, start small, one category. Number 2, recognize your emotional clutter. Take some time after this episode to record a voice text or write it down or journal it out or put it in the notes app on your phone. Where are you holding grudges, fears, or worries? Because it's not a question of if they're holding you back, it's where they're holding you back. So where are those things holding you back? And lastly, practice forgiveness and move on. Letting go applies to your relationships and often forgiving ourselves and others. And if you aren't sure where those hangups are, ask God. Ask your higher power. Ask the universe to show you what it is that you're still holding on. But be ready for it when they do, and don't stuff it away. Take some time to acknowledge it, unearth it, and really work through it. Because the title of this episode and what I said at the very beginning, there is power in letting go. So I'm going to close today with a scripture from Ephesians 4:31. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Wishing you the best in your journey as you let go, things that are no longer serving you. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Navigating Personal Growth podcast. I'm Brooke Plack. Join me again next week on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. This podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.